Thames River Heritage Park is a collection of heritage sites along the Groton and New London shores of the Thames River. Linked by water, these sites capture centuries of human history and culture along the Thames. They impart a sense of place and a deeper understanding of those who came before us. They give evidence to the powerful relationship this region has with the Thames River, and with it, the world beyond. And they reveal how far we've come as a country. In the following introductions to the historic sites, you'll hear stories with themes as relevant today as when they happened long ago. Struggles with racial injustice, immigration, addiction and betrayal, stories of massacres and traitors and revenge, and stories of whaling expeditions and privateering. In the park, you'll walk the same streets as did a Nobel-prize-winning playwright, America's first patriot, and its most infamous traitor. Situated on opposite shores within the park are two of Connecticut's most storied and scenic state parks, Fort Trumbull and Fort Griswold Battlefield. The breathtaking views of the river from atop the ramparts at Fort Trumbull and the Revolutionary War Battle of Groton Heights will not only transport you to a time long ago when our country was just being formed, but will also bring it to life. A description of the park wouldn't be complete without the seasonal hop-on, hop-off water taxi, which carries passengers to sites on both sides of the river. The park also offers historically themed boat and walking tours, as well as self-guided audio tours. And when visiting the submarine capital of the world, a chance encounter with a submarine is always a possibility on the very river that witnessed the birth of the nuclear-powered Navy and is home to America's tall ship, the U.S. Coast Guard Bark Eagle. We hope you enjoy the Thames River Heritage Park's Partners in History.
The mid-19th century and early 20th century saw massive immigration from Europe to America. Many new arrivals who settled in Connecticut came from Ireland. Like immigrants today, they were fleeing from hunger, poverty, and political turmoil in their native land, and were hoping for a more promising future on these shores. Many single women found jobs in domestic service. The Avery Cop House in Groton was one of the many places where they lived and worked. Hours were long and the work was hard, but having a safe roof over their heads, plenty to eat, and enough money to send home to support family in Ireland made these jobs desirable. Up early and to bed late, with a long day of cooking and cleaning in between, these women were still able to maintain ties of friendship and support within their immigrant community. Time for church on Sunday and a half a day off during the week allowed for a little freedom and fun amid the challenges of adjusting to a new home in America.
Built in the 1840s, the Monte Cristo cottage was purchased and remodeled by actor James O'Neill as a summer home for his family, and named for his long-running role as Edmond Dantes in The Count of Monte Cristo. The cottage was the boyhood home of his son, Eugene O'Neill, four-time Pulitzer Prize winner and America's only playwright to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. The playwright set his only comedy, Ah Wilderness, and his masterpiece tragedy, Long Day's Journey into Night, in this unassuming house, forever immortalizing it in his stage directions. O'Neill was notorious for the specificity of the settings of his plays, and visitors to the cottage will find a space mirroring the setting of his family drama and evoking the painful story that inspired it. The cottage is operated as a museum and archival site by the Tony Award and National Medal of Arts winning Eugene O'Neill Theater Center, and features a permanent exhibition of O'Neill's life and work and an extensive collection of artifacts and memorabilia. Very few other literary landmarks are as evocative of a writer and his inner world.
Connecticut state hero Captain Nathan Hale was a teacher in the schoolhouse that bears his name, located in historic downtown New London. Young Hale was a man ahead of his time, believing education was just as important for girls as it was for boys, teaching them in two separate classrooms. A Yale graduate, Hale became a captain in a local military unit before volunteering to serve as a spy at the request of General George Washington. Unfortunately, he was not successful in his mission and was caught almost immediately on his assignment while traveling from Long Island into New York City. He was hung as a spy by the British in New York and buried in an unmarked grave. Before his hanging, he offered for future generations of Americans these famous words: "I regret that I have but one life to give for my country."
One of the most creative and versatile American artists of his era, Louis Comfort Tiffany is best known for his innovations in glass. The son of Charles Louis Tiffany, co-founder of the prestigious Tiffany & Company, Louis followed his own path as an artist and designer, working as a painter, then in interior design, and finally focusing on glass. Louis was born in New York City, but his parents were both from Eastern Connecticut, and the family frequently visited relatives in the New London area. He met and married his first wife in Norwich, and his sister Annie and her husband Alfred Mitchell acquired property in New London, now Mitchell College, which became a frequent destination for the artist. Some Tiffany objects in the Lyman Allen's collection were gifts from these family descendants, such as this stunning glass paperweight vase and a beautiful opal and enamel gold ring.
Ten generations of the Hempstead family lived in these houses. Their stories help us understand life in colonial New England, including those of its seldom acknowledged enslaved people. It all started with a man recording the daily minutiae of his life and that of his neighbors in New London. A third-generation New London Hempstead, Joshua began writing his diary in 1711, continuing daily entries until just before his death in 1758. Joshua describes daily work, recreation, political and religious events in colonial New London County. In 1727, he wrote of his purchase of Adam Jackson for 85 pounds. Joshua's painstakingly kept journal opens a window into the enslaved Adam's life from an enslaver's perspective throughout the diary. 5 generations later, 3 Hempstead sisters became vocal abolitionists, producing anti-slavery literature and poetry. Their views were not accepted by many in the community, and as a result, they chose to resign from their churches in protest. These are just a couple of the stories told as we work to connect the story of slavery to its legacy in our world today.
On September 6, 1781, British forces waged a hard-fought battle with a small Connecticut militia at Groton's Fort Griswold. The 40-minute struggle ended with the American surrender. 85 Americans were killed, 35 wounded. Others carried off as prisoners. After the surrender, the British loaded some of the most severely wounded in an ammunition cart for transport downhill to the shore of the Thames River and onto British ships. They lost control of the cart, which struck an apple tree near the home of Ensign Ebenezer Avery. The wounded, including Ebenezer himself, were taken into the house and tended to. The house originally stood at the corner of Latham and Thames Street. In 1971, the house was purchased by R. Stanton Avery and moved, piece by piece, to its current location on the grounds of Fort Griswold Battlefield State Park. The Ebenezer Avery House and Museum was restored and is maintained by the Avery Memorial Association and contains period furnishings.
In 1954, the USS Nautilus, the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, was delivered to the U.S. Navy by Electric Boat, the company that built her in Groton, a few short miles from where she is now retired, anchoring the Submarine Force Museum. The crew of 105 could stay submerged and sunless, running on atomic power and manufactured air for months. In August 1958, the Nautilus accomplished the first undersea voyage to the North Pole, traveling nearly 1,000 miles under the Arctic ice cap to reach the top of the world, traversing the Northwest Passage and fulfilling the centuries-old goal of mariners and adventurers. Visitors to the museum can climb aboard this historic boat to to experience what it's like to be under the ocean. The museum honors over 100 years of submarine history and boasts the nation's finest displays and collections of America's submarine heritage, including 2 of the 8 medals of honor ever awarded to a submariner, our nation's highest honor for valor.
In the heart of downtown New London, the nonprofit Gard Art Center is home for the performing arts, education, and cinema, and the owner of the nationally acclaimed historic 1,400-seat Gard Theater, serving all of southeastern Connecticut. Located where a whaling merchant's mansion once stood, the Gard opened in 1926 as a movie and vaudeville theater with a distinctive Mediterranean decor. This is a time when movie palaces were America's entertainment living room. In 1929, Warner Brothers purchased the theater for $1 million to install the new talking picture technology. While it was one of the most popular theaters in the region, and it was sold in 1976 and shut down as downtown movie palaces were being demolished throughout the country, victims of television, multiplexes, and suburban sprawl. The theater was saved, however, from demolition by the community when the newly incorporated Gard Art Center purchased the theater in 1985. And since then, the Gard Theater has brought millions of people together for the best in movies, live music, theater, and dance. From Bob Dylan and the London Symphony Orchestra to the local talent shows to the latest movies on the Gard's giant screen with state-of-the-art digital cinema. Coming full circle, and then some, from its movie palace days.
We hope we've piqued your curiosity with these short stories from our historic sites. But the full history of the people and the places is more a book than a short story. There's so much to see, to hear, and to experience in the Thames River Heritage Park in New London and Groton, Connecticut. We invite you, your friends, and your family to take a morning, a day, or a weekend. Get on board one of our boats and immerse yourself in the stories that define our nation and our region. Visit our website at thamesriverheritagepark.org or Facebook page for information on operating hours of the sites and the water taxi, for annual events to plan your visit to the area, and to purchase tickets for tours and water taxi rides. We look forward to seeing you soon.